Welcome to this PeopleSense webinar introducing PeopleSense Analytics powered by Portus. My name is Brian Tognoni. I am the VP of ERP Services and Solutions for PeopleSense. Also available during the call is Gary Cerny, PeopleSense Intuitive ERP Consulting Manager. Earlier this year, I got a call from Bill Moradkin, President and Founder of Portus. Bill then demoed Portus to Gary Cerny and myself. Since the first meeting, PeopleSense and Portus had now become partners. We are now proudly presenting PeopleSense Analytics powered by Portus. When Bill first demoed Portus to us, we didn't see how it was any different from other Made2Manage and Intuitive ERP reporting tools like Advanced Reporting or Vertance Navigator, because it does everything they do. But as we learned, it does much more. We started to get excited that we finally found a tool that is intuitive and user-friendly enough that anyone can use it. As you will see, it is much more than a reporting tool. The thing that impressed me most are the 5 Made2Manage customers that have been using Portus for the last 1 to 4 years. They are all devotees of Portus and all referenceable. Many longtime users of Made2Manage and Intuitive have spent countless hours researching alternatives to their present ERP system. Most have concluded that the alternatives that are available and affordable may solve some of the problems they have, but create others. There is just nothing out there yet that justifies the cost and effort to change ERP systems for small to medium-sized manufacturing companies presently using Made2Manage or Intuitive. What if there was something that would plug into your present ERP system and turn it into the system you want it to be? We think for some of you, PeopleSense Analytics powered by Portus can be the tool that transforms your ERP system into the tool you envisioned it should be. Now, before we get started, I want to make sure that all of you mute your audio unless you have a question, and then you can unmute and ask the question or make a comment. We want to encourage all of you to participate and let us know what you want to see. There's no way we can show you everything that PeopleSense Analytics does in an hour, but we can attempt to demo the things that you need to address. We have an agenda, but if you want to see something or have a question that leads us in another direction, we'll be happy to accommodate you. We can also schedule a one-on-one demo with you at a later date. I'm now going to turn this over to Bill Moradkin, President and Founder of Portus. Bill will introduce himself, tell the Portus story, and demo the product.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you for attending this. I'm going to just go through 2 or 3 PowerPoint slides to set the context for what Portus does, and then we'll spend most of the time actually looking at it in action. So first, a little bit about our company. We just celebrated our 7th birthday, and probably the most important thing to know about us is that while we sell a software product, we're manufacturing people at our roots. I've run factories before and probably have had the same frustrations and issues that all of you face in getting information that means something to run the business. So a little bit over 7 years ago, I started Portus with some other talented people, and today we are interoperable with 3 different ERP platforms, and through our partnership with PeopleSense are soon adding Intuitive to the mix. And what are we trying to do? Well, the most important thing for you to know is that we're not going for a ho-hum kind of an effect with the audience or with customers. We're looking to deliver game-changing analytics, things where you say, wow, I can't believe we ran the business without Portus before. I remember once I did a demo for a prospect and they said, look, if you want to have a chance here, I have to have a wow, all caps, capital W, capital O, capital W. And that's what we're going for here. If for some reason, as we go through this webinar, or if you ask for a personalized demo, it just doesn't really reach you as, wow, this is dramatic, then there's probably not a good match there. So what do we do? Well, and this is a mouthful, but if I had to say what Portus does in one sentence, this is what I would say. We mine data and automate business processes and give you even predictive information. And we do that by transforming your transactional data in your ERP system, say Made2Manage, into an interactive web experience. So our client is a web browser, which has a lot of goodness, which I'll talk about later. I've highlighted business process flow automation because this is the piece we're very excited about collaborating with PeopleSense and the skill set that they have. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, how do you run your business? You have a lot of, and here are some examples, potential analytical processes that you have to go through to run your business well. For example, how do I manage cost reductions? How do I make sure that my work orders are clear and I can build? How do I make sure I am managing my suppliers? A lot of businesses end up not being happy with how effective these processes are. And for the most part, the reason that they're not effective is because it takes too long or it's too cumbersome to put the analysis together to actually drive these to improve the business. And so we like to think of Portus as a collection of workbenches that allow you to address these business processes and not spend any time actually putting the information together, but spend all of your time interacting with the information to improve the business. So what does Portus look like at a high level? Well, we take data mostly from your ERP system, say Made2Manage, but we are not limited to only data flows from your ERP system. In fact, we can bring in data from other systems that you have in the company or even from outside your four walls. I'll demonstrate this to you very clearly as we go through the demo, even information from your suppliers. In some cases, customers have even asked us to make versions of the analytics in Portus available to their customers through a branded customer portal. So customers would come to your website, click on a link, and now can do self-service inquiries on a lot of information that you would have in Made2Manage. And over the last few years, we've even developed little apps. Customers have come to us and says, hey, there's a dynamic which is not captured at all in any of my systems. Can you build a little app that I can go and put things in? And then that also becomes part of the data sources that are available to me in the final analytics. So when this all comes together, and this is the last slide before we go into the demo, ideally it should look like this. It feels like you've bought an appliance in PeopleSense Analytics, and in that appliance you get the effect of having an architect to actually plan the analytics, somebody that really understands the underlying database. You have web development resources, and a lot of the analysis is automated for you so that you can get these effects, business scalability, efficiency, and actually a platform to build even more solutions side by side with the data that Portus is already bringing. So I'm about to go into the demo. If there are any high-level questions just about the PowerPoint slides, I can address those real quick. And if there isn't, I'm going to go straight into the demo. Okay, good. So first thing you need to know about Portus is that from a client perspective, when you want to use it, you're going to go into your favorite browser platform. This is Google Chrome. That's what I use. And you're going to have an address that is going to be a local address in your network. Once we set that up for you, you'll bookmark it, just like you bookmark other places you visit often on the web, and that'll always get you to this page. There's a lot of goodness with having a web client. Customers will put this on old computers in a stock room. It's available to you on smaller form factors like a pad or even a phone. The other thing to notice here is that Portus comes with an advanced administration module that allows you to control who has access to what report. So I had to log in. That login meant that this user has a profile, and that profile means they have access to certain reports. Now, the navigation in Portus is quite simple. You click on these environments at the top, and they open a series of options on the left-hand side that start your navigation through the system. Sometimes when you click on something, you're asked a question first, and sometimes when you click on an option, it goes straight into an inquiry and comes back with a set of information. Almost always, wherever you end up, you're going to be able to drill and continue to drill and continue to drill. And each time that you are making these inquiries, you're doing a real-time SQL query to the Made2Manage database so that it's always, or any ERP database, it's always real-time. So what I'm going to do is to go through some examples in a little bit more detail of how you would use Portus in a normal manufacturing setting. I will stop at the end of each example and see if there's any questions that need to be fielded, and then I'll go through other examples. And the whole point of that is that hopefully some of these resound with you as, yeah, we do that all the time here, and yes, this would be a much more efficient way of doing it. So for the first example, I'm going to do a bill of material cost reduction analysis. Someone has been assigned the task of analyzing a bill of materials and seeing how do we reduce costs on the bill of material. So we clicked on bill of material and it says, well, what bill of materials do you want to do an analysis for? Maybe you don't even know the answer to that question. You just remember that the thing that we want to analyze has the string G3 in the description. It's the G3 module. So when I clicked on that, I first got a list of all BOMs in the system where the G3 appears in the description. There is 40 of them. In fact, this interim step where you get a list of potential candidates with a lot of other great information about them, like how much is on hand, how much cost, when was the last time, in and of themselves are great sources of information. For example, if I had just not put in anything in here and hit go, we would go through and it would come back with 6,450 different BOMs that are in this database. And then I could use further filtering to find the BOM that I wanted. We'll do a little bit more of this later, but right now I'm going to go back to my example. I know that I'm looking for something with G3, and I say, oh, the G3 scan module, that's the one I want. And I'm going to leave these other options the way they are. We're going to ask for a flattened bill of material for the G3 scan module. So when I click on the part number now, I actually get to the flattened bill of material for this assembly. What do we mean by flattened? I'm sure most of you in the audience know exactly what we mean. It means that this assembly has some parts that report directly to it. Here are the parts that report directly to the parent. See how it matches the part number in question. But some parts report to sub-assemblies. We flatten through the sub-assemblies to get a list of what you would call by parts that comprise the material in this assembly. There is a total of $9,662 of cost here. But what I'm going to do, just to show you some more of the navigational elements, is I'm going to say, well, I'm really interested in parts that start with cap, because I'm interested in capacitors. This is a electronics assembly here. So now I have the parts that are caps, and that's $3.67. But now I'm going to do sorting. I'm going to click on this and say sort descending. And so now I have that same list, but I have it in descending order by extended cost. And I say, oh, there's a tantalum cap here that goes 12 per that drives most of my capacitor spending. I want to know much more about this part number. So things that are blue and underlined, what do we know about the web? You'll click on them and get more information. When I click on this, I'm going to go to the report that is by far the most used report in Portus. It is not an especially complicated report, but I've had several customers tell us that the price of Portus, just this report makes the price of Portus worth it. It's everything you ever wanted to know about a single part number in the system. It's really a combination of 9 or 10 different reports, but brought in together, kind of like a workbench for a part number that tells you it allows you to go anywhere with the part. You can end up on, we just ended up on this report because we started in a bill of material analysis, but you can end up here because you see a list of shortages and you click on the part number, you see a list of excess inventory, so it's kind of a lowest common denominator type of report for everything you ever wanted to know about a part number. So as an example, up here in these three squares, we have item master information, we have some statistics. Here we are seeing what's on hand by location. Here are the various work orders that require this part number. Here would be any work orders that are building this part number, this being a purchase part, there's nothing building it. Here are open purchase orders. Here are the approved manufacturer records, if you have those in your system. And then here is some where used information, what assemblies is it used on, and if you actually click on the words where used, you're going to go to, okay, these are the direct assemblies that it's used on, then what is the final top level assembly that it's used on, and then I just hit back. By the way, our customers sometimes get very excited about the back button, which of course we did not invent. It comes standard in the browser, but if you think about it, a lot of times in reporting platforms, or especially in the canned reports inside an ERP system, once you run a report for a particular part number, you got to go all the way back out and then run it for a new one. You can't kind of go through a list and just get back to where you were. Here, and this would be very valuable for contract manufacturers especially, is, hey, do we have the same manufacturer part number stored under a different internal part number for another customer? This is kind of a specialty thing, not going to apply to everybody that's in the audience, but for some people, they could get very excited about this. And this button is very useful because it's going to demonstrate, and I'm going to click on it right now, how we're able to go outside of the four walls of the ERP system and get information from suppliers. So all of the information on this screen came from the ERP system, except this little area down here, because what we just did when we hit market availability is we said, go see who has this part number out there, and it checked, and we do this with electronics, but we can really link into any of your vendors that have any kind of a structured availability program. So for example, it says that, well, DigiKey has 58,000 of this part number ready to go. And if I actually click on that, you actually now have left Portus, are on the DigiKey website. And for those of you that are not familiar with DigiKey, they're one of the prominent electronics distributors. And we see the same information. Hey, I have 58,000 of these that I can sell to you at these range of prices, depending on how many you buy at a time. So that's a good example of going outside of the four walls for some of the information. Well, we were doing a bill of materials analysis, remember, and we see that the standard cost for this part is 26 cents, but I may want to know what I've bought it for in the past. So if I click on PO history, I'm going to see, oh, here is who I've bought it from, and I've been able to get it lower than 26 cents to 21 cents when I buy it from Newark at some higher quantities. From that same screen, I may look at the on-hand inventory and say, wait a second, I looked at this yesterday and we had way more inventory here. What happened to all of our inventory? Well, I can click on inventory transactions. Inventory transactions is going to give me the last 1 year's worth of transactions. So this says that, well, a year ago today, there was nothing on hand. And then the first thing that happened is on April 16th, we loaded some, we just brought some inventory in. This was, I think, an acquired company. And then here are all of the transactions, issue transactions and receipt transactions. The issue transactions say which job it was issued to. And then at the end, we've ended up at 6,845. We even have a running balance so you can see what the inventory was at any one point in the past 1 year. So that is an example of the first flow. And remember, if I hit the back button here, we'll see how quickly we started at a very high level looking at an overall BOM. and then we were able to use filtering and sorting to pick a target list. Then we drilled into a particular part and then started doing all kinds of different analysis on it. Okay, so that is my first example of how you would use Portus and some of the navigation. One of the key points for everybody to keep in mind is that you have all just been trained completely on Portus, because you this is the extent of it. You're either clicking on things that are blue and underlined, or you're using some of the sorting and filtering functionality. Everything else is managed for you in pre-built, purpose-built reports.
Yeah, this is Brian. We had a customer ask a question on the chat. And by the way, if anybody wants to chat a question, go ahead and do that, and I'll try to get it answered for you. Rob literally asks, is this super report canned, or does it need to be built?
No, it's ready to go. So if you were to install Portus, the next moment when you went in, you could ask for this for any part number in your environment. I hope I answered the question. But you know what? I think it's good for, actually that's a very good question to address at a high level.
Yeah, and also he asked, because people that have advanced reporting know that they have to go through and put all the joins, et cetera. And literally, Bob, or Rob, I should say, followed up that question by asking, and it takes upon itself to do all of the joins, is what he asks.
Yes, so I think that's why I want to answer this at a high level, because it looks like we have some really expert level people in the audience, which is great. Fundamental to the Portus philosophy is that we are not an ad hoc reporting tool. We are a purpose-built tool so that you are getting a solution, not a tool. Everything in here is ready to go. All the SQLs have already been optimized, and as Brian said, the great thing for anybody signing up now is that we have 5 Made2Manage customers that have been banging on this thing for 1 to 4 years. So this has been, it's been production tested, if you will. They run their companies using this, and you have a single version of the truth. Nobody goes into Portus and say, oh, now I want Portus to do this today. I want to create this report in Portus, and spending the first 10 minutes of a meeting saying, well, why didn't my ad hoc report match your ad hoc report? So it's purpose-built. People get used to the views, and they know exactly what is where, and then it becomes the single version of the truth.
Also, the question was asked, is this using an intuitive or Made2Manage? And I can answer that question. It's you're using Made2Manage, I assume.
Yeah, this is a demo Made2Manage database. Our customer has allowed us to use it, and you'll see later in parts of the demo that we've like changed customer names and done some things with the costs so that there is no proprietary information being disclosed.
Okay, that's the bulk of the questions I have so far on chat.
Okay. All right, great. So we're going to move on to our next example, and I want to show you probably what is the most advanced functionality that we have. A lot of ad hoc report writing tools will allow you to create 2-dimensional views of the data and even allow you to do some drilling. But with Portus, we're able to do algorithms and simulations. A great example of that is a tool we call Live MRP. Live MRP means that we have an algorithm that is turbo fast that will do a complete netting of your supply and demand, almost as if you were running a Made2Manage MRP or doing a planning and scheduling run, but it'll do it in a matter of seconds, and it's always real time. So let me tell you how that works. So in Live MRP, you can run it for all of the jobs, and in some cases, depending on what kind of business you have, your jobs are your jobs. You don't have any way of separating them by customer, in which case you wouldn't even have this. But in order to keep it manageable from a demo perspective, I'm going to say, look, I want to look at jobs that are related to my customer Nordstrom. And this is defaulting to, I'm looking at the next 90 days. After that, I'm going to look at, I'm not going to really worry about things that are more than 90 days away. So when I hit go, you're going to see this in living color. It actually ran a complete MRP algorithm on these jobs and has come back with some analysis. So let me level set everybody on what's happening here. There are 13 jobs that we are building for Nordstrom's, and we have some information about them, like the parent job, if it is linked to any sales order. These are all stock jobs, as you can see. What is the status? Is it released or open? This is a custom field for this particular client of ours. Who is the customer? Which, of course, we picked Nordstrom's. And then, what are we building? What is the original quantity on the work order, and what is still remaining to be built? And then two very important dates, the scheduled completion date and the scheduled release date of the job. The scheduled release date being very important because you need to have all of the materials on the job bomb there no later than that date to allow you the manufacturing time to deliver it on the scheduled completion date. And this is where the analytics of Portus starts. For any particular work order, and let's pick this last one as our example, it'll tell you how many items are on the job bomb and how many of them are short. So this is an open job, so since we haven't released it and started the kitting process, everything is short. And then it's giving you analytics. It's saying, look, when you get to December 6th, 34 out of the 51 items you're going to be able to get from on-hand in-stock inventory that's available today. I have applied stock of common material to all of these work orders that have priority because they have an earlier release date, and I'm telling you, you're good for 34 of those. That's a good status. Another reasonably good status is on order and on time. It says, well, for 13 of them, you don't have those on hand yet or in stock yet. But the good news is I was able through the MRP algorithm to find purchase orders or work orders, if they're items that you make, that have delivery dates / completion dates that are going to allow you to hit that December 6th date. So that's good. Then I have two bad categories. Hey, I found an order, but it's not on time. It's not going to arrive before December 6th. And the worst category is, look, I don't know what's going on, but hey, you've got 4 items that you have no stock coverage today and you have nothing on order. So unless you do something, you're not going to be able to start building this job on December 6th. So of course, things that are blue and underlined are going to give us more information. I'm going to be very interested in these 4 items. So I click on this and I get a what I call a small job shortage report. It's not everything, it's those 4 items. So what do we see? We see the part number description, some classification information, all of this stuff we need, all 4 items obviously we need on December 6th, and it's giving you some analysis. It says, well, on the first one as an example, you need 26 of them. There is 66 on hand right now, but I can't allocate any to this requirement, and I don't see any purchase orders, so the entire thing is in the not on order category. Okay, so then you say, okay, how does it know that? Well, we're going to click on the part number and we're going to see this. Everybody just remember that the job in question is this II-957, and of course not conducive in a webinar, but the quick quiz question is, guess what happens if I click on this part number? I'm going to go to the part inquiry report. And here we see the information in more detail. Yeah, there is 66 on hand, but there is 161 needed on various jobs. And the one we were interested in is II-957. You can just visually see that these 66 are going to run out. You know, by the second job, we've run out of those. In fact, we could see that in better detail if we click on this supply demand report, where it actually gives you a time-lapsed view. I think there is an equivalent report in Made2Manage called material availability that tells you, oh, here's how the 66 on hand are going to be exhausted. And if there was any purchase orders coming in, we'd see where we turn negative. So clearly for II 957, we're negative. We're not going to be able to supply the 26. So back at part inquiry, this is where all kinds of things become important. Like, for example, since I need these parts, let me see if there's any market availability. So I click on market availability and I see, okay, these guys called Quest have 335 of them that they're willing to sell. If you want to buy one piece at a time at $4.50, you know, there's DigiKey, and again, as we talked, we can click on any part number and actually go to the DigiKey site, and maybe even order them here. I can look and say, well, wait a second, where have we bought these in the past? That's one of the things I want to know, and that gives me that information. And then to really round things out, I want to tell you something about these bubbles. This is another example of information that's not in your ERP system, but could be very valuable. These are called Portus comment bubbles. That's a specialty feature that you can get with Portus, where you can add a comment about a particular element in the system. So a white bubble means there are no comments for that part number. A blue bubble means there are comments, but none of them are less than a week old. So you can see that people have been, I've been adding comments at various demos here on this one part number. And if somebody else wanted to add a part number, I can add a comment here. I can say webinar attendee said they will provide these on 10/26. So this is what we would call tribal knowledge. I just hit save, and now that became my latest comment. So if I was to leave here, run the simulation again, come back and click on those 4 items, you'll notice that the bubble has turned red because now there's a comment that is less than a week old. And this allows me to show something that I always forget to show, but I'm glad this reminded me, is anytime you have a report in Portus that is a grid like this, a system of columns and rows, you will see this Excel icon, which will allow you to export this to Excel. So I just exported that to Excel. Let me hit this, and oh, it opened up on my other screen here. Let me move it over so you can see this. So here is the Excel version of that. And this is not something you have to parse. I mean, this is a real live Excel spreadsheet. You can do, you know, calculations if you want to do. And look at the cool thing here. With Excel now, we have so much more real estate that even though you can't really see the comments on their, you know, as full text in the web presentation, in the Excel presentation, the latest comment shows up. So a lot of people will use Portus's Excel export to have a full job shortage report that they can even send to a customer or use in a review internally. Like, for example, I could have just clicked, instead of clicking on the 4, I could have clicked on the 51 items, and this is a full shortage report that shows you the worst items at the top. Those are the 4 items that are not on order. Here are all the items that are dependent on purchase orders, so we see who is the vendor and how the allocation goes. And here are the 34 items where we had plenty of on-hand inventory in stock, and we were able to get allocation from on-hand inventory. So that is a view of live MRP, and very important if you have totally stayed with me through this. So let's say while I was doing this, a buyer went and placed one of those 4 items on order, and the delivery date was, you know, like in November, and plenty of time. Well, when I hit go here, what would have happened is that immediately the algorithm would have rerun then a full netting of everything, and this would now say 3, and this would say 14, because now one of the items is no longer in this not on order category. So very important for you to know, hard to demonstrate, that this is always real time. So for any customers out there that have discrete products with relatively, I mean, it doesn't have to be dense bombs, but any kind of reasonably long BOMs with a bunch of components, or even shorter BOMs, this is a very great tool to very quickly manage shortages on a real-time basis. Okay, that is the second example. Brian, are there any questions that have come in from the audience before I move on to another example? Brian?
I had you on mute, sorry.
Okay.
There's no other questions. Certainly if there's anybody out there that wants to just unmute and ask a question, go ahead and do that. And those of you that have not muted, would you please mute unless you've got a question?
Okay, I'll keep going, but yeah, feel free to chime in. Now I'm going to go into one of the things that was very near to my heart when I ran a factory, which was supplier business reviews. In my experience, if you are organized and disciplined in having supplier reviews with your suppliers once a quarter at the least, you will find that they will perform better for you because they know that you're monitoring and watching. So in previous lives, this was always an issue for us. And the challenge was that it took so long to put the data together to have these meetings that we would never be consistent about them. Or when we put the data together, it just wasn't enough drilling capability to really get at the issue. So one of the features, one of my favorite features in Portus is the ability to do very quick supplier performance analysis across multiple parameters. So for example, let's say a supplier is coming in an hour and you want to use the time to go over their performance. Well, you don't need to spend any time putting the information together. So what are the things you want your supplier to do for you? Usually the three top things are on-time delivery, the quality of the product that they send you, and that they're giving you good pricing. So let's start with on-time delivery. When we run the on-time delivery, it says, well, how do you want to measure them? Do you want to measure them on the number of receipts or the quantity received? Number of receipts is usually a harder measure. I won't go into details of that because I think, again, we got a good audience that knows what that is all about, but chime in if you want to know. And then what do you consider on time? You know, it all depends on your policies. Like a lot of places will say, hey, if they're early, I don't care, but I don't want them to be even 1 day late. Or you say, well, I'll allow them to be 1 day late because of transportation and stuff. Once you define that and hit go, then Portus will run that really for all suppliers. And now you can do some slicing and dicing. Like, for example, you can say, well, we have 2 dates on each PO. I'm going to measure them on their last promise date. So I'll do that. That improves it a little bit. And then I'm having this meeting with DigiKey. So let me take a look at DigiKey's performance. So you have DigiKey in the room, and you tell them, hey, I'm not happy about this. Out of the 888 deliveries we've had so far in October, you're only on time 68% of the time. They say, no, that's not true. I don't think your data is accurate. That's why you need the drill. So you drill on those, and now you're going to get all 888 deliveries in all the possible detail. For example, you know, who's the vendor, what's the purchase order, what was the original promise date and the latest promise date, and when was the receiver date. So if I want to know what were all the things that were not on time, like for example, I can say does not contain the letter O. So I'll do that. So here are all of my late shipments. We can go over these 285 with anybody. You know, hey, this is what the data says. On the first one, you had told me October 2nd, you delivered on October 4th, and so on and so forth. And by the way, these will also use the shop floor calendar to skip weekends and, you know, you report it accurately, the kinds of stuff that sometimes get in the way of having the absolute accurate report. And of course, you can run this for any supplier. A lot of our customers will say, well, I'm really interested in supplies, so I'm going to look at PO categories INV, JO, and SO. So I know that our Made2Manage audience members know exactly what that is. So you can do various types of filtering to get at the answer you want. Drill, and away you go. Same thing with supplier quality. You know, do you want to measure them on the number of inspections or the quantity inspected? So I hit go here. And this one on the monthly, we go back actually 13 months. And again, I'm going to use DigiKey as my example. And it says, well, last month we had an 15% of the stuff you sent us didn't pass receiving inspection. So they're going to say, well, what are the details of that? So here they are. And here are the 3 items with all of the comments from the inspector all ready to go to be analyzed. So again, I'll stop because I want to see if there is any questions out there or a particular direction there is from the audience to go, and then and after that I'll have some concluding remarks, and we can open it up for a general Q&A. Brian, anything out there?
Not yet.
Okay. Very good. Then I will show you one other vignette. Oh.
Dixie wants to know, can you show sales performance?
I can, and in order to do that, I need to log out of here and go into a different database. Yeah, this sales performance is one of my favorite tools. So let me get sales performance going. So while it runs, what sales performance does is a customer of ours said, look, we have salespeople all over the country, in fact, all over the world, and we want a place to be able to have a review meeting with them to see how each of them is doing, and they have one place to go to measure that. So the VP of Sales sets up targets for each territory, and then and this database is an older database, so I need to analyze this for the 3rd quarter. Let me show you. So once I do that, it's going to come back. It's going to look at all of the targets for the 3rd quarter, and it's going to say, well, we set a bookings target of 4.7 million for the 3rd quarter of 2017, and that target, by the way, is set inside a little Portus application where the VP, and I can show you that momentarily, where the VP of Sales goes in and puts the targets. Then we divide that target into 13 weeks of the quarter, and then we analyze how the quarter has gone through. So this database, I think, is as of near the end of September. So you can imagine that here we're nearing the end of the quarter, and you can see how the performance has gone. We were kind of below, and then we went above the target line. We were way above, and now we're kind of right at the target line. And if somebody wants to say, well, wow, looks like a bunch of stuff came in week 12, what is that stuff? They could click on that, and they could see the details of the sales orders and customers that drove that number. But the way that this is used is you can kind of go through and analyze this, you know, one territory, and if you want, one salesperson at a time. So this territory performed really well because their target was to bring in 200K of bookings, but they were already at 987K. And this probably is a good example of how we also build little applications. Remember that the territory is domestic East 4, and they have 200K target, which has been divided up into 15K. And 15K per week. I want to show you how you would go about changing that sales target. So I'm going to say, look, I want to change the bookings target for Q3 FY 17. I'm going to change domestic East 4's target. This is all happening in Portus to 750K. I'm going to update the target. And now, if I go back into the dashboard, click sales performance and give it a second to run, you'll notice that real time that target line is going to change. And Brian, I saw that there was a question, there was a couple of questions that came through. So while we're waiting for this to run again, just take me through what the questions were.
Well, the two of them were, how is this licensed per install, per user? And we'll get into pricing here and how that's done a little later in the next couple minutes. The other one was, can you show this same information daily for any particular month, bookings in comparison with sales?
Yeah, we have various reports in here. Of course, the drill goes down to the individual sales order level and exactly what date the order came in. So we definitely have that information. We also have ways to kind of trend it on a daily basis as well. And as Brian mentioned, we're gonna have things that are gonna come up in the webinar where we just don't do them justice in terms of showing you all of the details, but really the webinar is our mechanism to at least get you to understand what Portus is all about, and then we would love to follow up with an individualized demo with any of the customers / people in, and we can then really do deep dives into very particular issues for you. But yes, the answer to your question is definitely there is daily trending of bookings, shipments, billings against targets.
And when it comes to things that you do not have in Portus right now, or they want to have in that, it is no extra cost based upon the way this is done, and the way this is licensed, and you'll find out soon. But there's no extra cost for the Portus people to go in and build you something.
Yeah. And our reasoning for that is that, for example, this sales performance is something that piqued somebody's interest in this webinar, right? We originally built this for a particular customer. When they came to us, we said, fantastic idea. We know, based on our experience, that there's going to be other people that are going to want this. In fact, it could be that it is the linchpin of why a customer decides to get Portus. So for us, it makes business sense to add functionality on a regular basis because it allows us to appeal to a wider audience. So good point, Brian. So I want to get to some things because I want to make sure they're mentioned because people are going to have questions about pricing and how it's licensed and all of that. So let me just tell you in review, these are all of the value propositions that you need to consider as you think about Portus. First of all, big thing, just the fact that there's so much automation on reporting and analytics. I mean, most organizations either have hired people to write reports or all kinds of people are downloading things into Excel, VLOOKUPs, pivot tables, and the amount of time and resources that is spent on that can be automated is a huge efficiency gain. Then separate from that, like for example, a good example of that was that supplier on-time delivery. If you needed to do that every week, it would take some time to put that together. But let's talk about part inquiry. It's not a very complicated report, but we had actually done a time and motion study and said, hey, to get all of those elements in part inquiry just through Made2Manage, how long would it take? You know, in part inquiry, you get it in a matter of 2 or 3 seconds. We asked one of our customers to kind of go through, get the on-hand information, then get the shortage information, then get the where used information and put them all together. And it took that person, and they were quick, I thought, about 4 minutes to do it. So if you are talking about part numbers all the time, and it takes you 4 minutes to get the full picture of what's going on with a part number, but you do that 100 times a day, 500 times a day, and we can save you most of that time. That's a big efficiency gain. Then let's go through the rest of these very quickly. a single version of the truth. We love going into our customer sites and seeing conference rooms with Portus screens, everyone looking up. They know it's real time. No one's coming in with Excel spreadsheets and first arguing about who's got the right numbers. Repeatable workflows. The best way to improve the performance of your business is to identify the key analytical workflows and then make sure they are repeatable. And Portus allows you to make them repeatable by doing all the heavy lifting of getting the information organized first. I will also tell you that a lot of times your customers will say, wow, your system, as you're going through things with them in Portus, is so advanced. I have a better feeling about you in terms of how much control you have over your business. We talked about the ability to do algorithms, the ability to integrate data from multiple sources, and then also we have in all of our customers, they've saved a lot on licensing costs because your users are transactors and analyzers, and at the limit, all of your analyzers will not need to go into Made2Manage or Intuitive because they get all of their information from Portus and it's getting its information from the database, so it's not tying up any licenses. So you will also get a benefit that way.
There's another question here before we go to the next slide.
Yes.
Can these reports be set up to be emailed or sent to users on a timed basis?
Yes, we have and that would be that person. We'd love to give them a demo of our notifications module. Absolutely. Yes.
That's Nathan, by the way, who
okay.
asked that question.
So sales process, we're at the webinar. Then we'll do an individualized demo. If it looks good, we will do a 30-day free trial. After the trial, there's two options. Sometimes 30 days isn't enough. So you can continue the trial for another 90 days at $500 a month, or you can sign up. Or if you know after 30 days that you want it, then we'll give you a big discount for the first year. How does it work? It's a monthly subscription price, so there is no upfront big fees or anything that you have to pay, and it's always unlimited users and sessions. You can go to town with this thing. You can open, 7 windows in 3 different browsers across 40 users. It's not going to matter. It's very scalable, and we feel so confident about it that you can cancel at any time. So your only commitment is month to month. Now, I will tell you that we've never had a customer that signed up canceled. They just continue to use it month after month. Here's the pricing. There is package pricing depending on how much of the functionality you really need. So it could start as low as $1,000 per month for unlimited user sessions, and it could go up to $3,000 per month for unlimited users and sessions. And some things are add-on specialty functions where you can say, look, I just don't want that, in which case we don't add them for you, but I gave you some examples of the add-on functions that you can add to any of the packages. And so the best way to proceed, if this is of interest to you, is to contact PeopleSense, and probably the logical next step is to schedule an individualized demo, or if you, before you even commit to a demo, you have a series of questions, if you can route them through PeopleSense, we'll be happy to answer those first before you commit to a demo. And I think, Brian, we're going to turn it over to Gary for some thoughts as well, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm usually pretty loud in demos and conversations over the year, but I've been kind of quiet here until the end. So I just wanted to give you a little opinion. I think of this product, and I got really excited because obviously I'm an Intuitive guy. And by the way, Intuitive users, thank you for attending. You did hear that we're looking for a candidate to be part of the Intuitive. You saw the data today with the Made2Manage product, but think of it, the first time I saw this thing, I said, these are comprehensive, dynamic, departmental workbenches that really work into your workflows. I mean, if you think about the workflows that Bill went through, those are all the things that had got thrown at me when I was working with the product, and the logic that comes out of you guys as you're working with Intuitive and or Made2Manage. So again, it's a great product. I got real excited. We just touched it. There's so many other areas that are in the software. So one of the things, as you can see the context, give me a call from the intuitive point. Please give Brian a call from the Made2Manage point, or either one of us, it doesn't matter. The recording, today's session was recorded. So if there's other people that want to get a feel for the product, just before you chat with us or decide to chat with us, we will publish the recording on the website. So review it, take another stab at it, and we'll be more than glad, as Bill and Brian both said, do a session one-on-one with anybody, and then take your different flows. If there was a flow that maybe we didn't get into, like Dixie had mentioned, can we do this versus do that as far as the sales comparison? And as Bill also mentioned, that's the way we kind of build a lot of the things in the product. So I just wanted to thank everybody for attending. Be sure to contact us. And again, if there's any other closing comments for Brian or Bill at this point, but I wanted to thank you for coming also.
We also want to ask you, if you want to stay on and ask more questions right now, you're welcome to stay on and discuss this for as long as you want. So Gary, Bill, and myself will be here until we don't have anybody else on the line. So if anybody wants to ask a question or wants to have us go a different direction, let us know.
Is there anything we can look at on the finance side?
A question.
Okay,
Surely.
Go ahead.
So it's not available for Intuitive yet. What is your timeline?
That's a great. Go ahead, Bill.
Gary,
go ahead.
let me field that. So,
sure.
The great thing about the partnership with PeopleSense is, as you know, they have experts in Intuitive. We did not run into PeopleSense, unfortunately, until earlier this year. So with Made2Manage, we had to learn everything about the database ourselves. So what we want is the great knowledge of PeopleSense, an anchor customer for Intuitive that basically is going to allow us to have a real live database to build on. And I think with the combination of those, once that anchor customer is signed up and ready to go, and by the way, we would give that anchor customer preferential pricing, obviously, once it was all done, I think we can have it ready to go by February of 2018.
Okay.
Did we? Okay. There was another question?
I thought somebody
Yeah,
had it.
I thought somebody else chimed in too.
We still have people out there, so anybody that has a question, please let us know.
There was one here. Can we look at the finance side of the software? That was from VFP.
Oh, yeah, I see that. Yes. Okay.
Okay, so
Actually, I just got an email from the people at VFP, and they want us to do a live demo. But if anybody wants to talk about finance, we can do that right now.
yeah, so let me go there. Okay, so on the finance side, we have a bunch of different functionality running from revenue to management of accounts receivable, to cash receipts, to inventory, to accounts payable, and some general ledger querying information. So there's a wide array there. So before I start foaming at the mouth and starting at the top, the person who asked the question, it'd be great if any of these particular topics are of more interest. I want to hit that.
That VFP is no longer on the line, but they did,
Okay.
as I said, ask for a demo,
Okay.
one-on-one demo, and we will do that for them.
Yes, yes. So, but there's other people on the line, and
Yes.
unless they want me to go a different direction, I'm going to just spend a little time in the finance reports.
Oh, they say they're still there. Okay, so if
Okay.
Can you not hear us, Brian?
No, now I
there you
can.
go.
Now I can.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, you got some place you want to go on this? Go ahead.
Interested in the backlog recon.
Okay. So backlog is an analysis of your, depending on how you define backlog is either only your open sales orders, or you could have other statuses you consider as backlog. So I'm going to just hit go here so you can see the results. So what happens with, let me do this, I'm not in my demo database anymore, so it doesn't have enough time frames in it. Let me go back to my demo database, and that'll be better. So I just ran it. This customer says, no, I consider backlog to be just open. I mean, they can choose to add the others. And so what does it look like? Well, backlog says, okay, from a default perspective, I'm going to show you backlog by customer, which is open sales orders. And I'm going to show you the time frames this way. I'm going to have two bookends. Past due backlog. These are delivery dates that are before October 25th. And then the rest of Q4, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 of 2018, depending on how many time frames you have in your GL calendar, it'll show you 9 different columns. And anything beyond that last column is going to fall into the beyond category for 28 million of backlog. So now here's how you can manipulate this. You can say, well, I want to be much more granular with this. I want to see it on a monthly basis and not by customer. I want to see it by part number, and I don't want to see dollars. I want to see units. So now the whole thing changed. It's monthly, it's part numbers down the side, and what's in here are units, not dollars. Then you say, well, you know, now that I see that, I'm going to be reviewing this with my customer Nordstrom. So now limit this to only customer Nordstrom. So that you can also filter. So you have 6 different filters. You get to choose what you see the report by, and then you have these other options. So now you look at this and you say, oh, we've got a bunch of stuff in the past due category. We were supposed to deliver 11 of this part to Nordstrom's. What's going on? Every number in here is drillable. So those 11 are made up of these sales orders that are in open status. And now you can see the results of that. And I'm glad you asked about backlog analysis, because it is quickly becoming the favorite report of our customers. I will not be able to do it justice. This in and of itself is going to take about half an hour, but let me describe it to you. What it does is it says, here is a detail line by line of all of my sales orders. And then using our MRP engine, it comes back and says, well, the clear to build date for the job or if it's covered by inventory, then you're ready to ship that sales order today. But where it gets powerful is it finds which job is going to eventually provide supply to that sales order. It traverses that job through all sub-jobs and sub-assemblies and comes back and tells you what is the clear to build date, so you can compare that to the current delivery date of the sales order and be able to then say, wait a second, we're in trouble here because this sales order has this delivery date, but very quickly Portus has gone in and I will not be able to avoid this. So I'm going to go through this quickly. It's not going to just, oops, I hit the wrong thing here. Let me hit backlog analysis. Okay, so as I said, here is my backlog, all of my sales orders. Again, I'm going to limit this to only open sales orders. So it's saying that this sales order to this customer is eventually going to be supplied by this work order, and it's determined that the clear to build date for that work order is November 1st, and the projected availability date for it is also November 1st, and that's because the lead time, the manufacturing lead time that's loaded in for this, in the router for this job is very short. And it's this lightning bolt drill that's kind of the key linchpin of this, because somebody could say, well, here's a situation where, for example, this is going to be clear to build on 10/26/2017, and the due date is 9/27. And the question is, well, how do you know that the clear to build date is not 10/26? If I click on the lightning bolt drill, as we call it, it will show you all of the jobs, and in this case, there's only one job that is needed. And then for each job down here, it'll show you all the shortages and do a clear to build date. So here it's saying, look, the clear to build date is 10/26 because you need 20 of these. You don't have any supply, so I'm going to use the lead time. So I'm going to add 1 day to today's date and say that its clear to build date is 10/26. Again, I'm going very fast. I would go much slower to show it to you, but I want you just to kind of latch on to the concept that this analysis is going to look at every sales order. It's going to find the top level job that produces the supply, and then it's going to traverse it and all sub jobs necessary to build it and analyze that and come back and give you a clear to build date and a projected availability date. In fact, our customers that use this will sometimes just say, hey, what can I ship today? So if I pick 10/25, then I'm going to have all the things that we are saying are available and can ship today. So that's backlog analysis. But I need to go through it with you in more detail. So if you're really interested in this, definitely schedule a demo, because this has arms and legs and does a lot of great stuff.
What do you have in the way of job performance type, post-mortem type analysis?
I don't think we have as much as we should. I will show you something that we have recently built for a customer that's a machine shop type of customer. Let me get into that database. So we have a report called Work Center Performance, and this will actually go through, and I see this database is old, so it kind of stopped in 2016 period 3, but this is another type of presentation that we have where these guys wanted to have a review session for their overall work center performance across several different tabs. So they've organized their meeting and said, I want to look at revenue and cost by work center and be able to kind of drill on it by job or by employee or by work center. And then I want to look at labor hours, and then I want to look at scrap costs. And as they kind of add to their review session, we may even add other tabs. So in this analysis, they also have a revenue rate by work center, which is not a standard feature in Made2Manage. You guys probably have just labor and overhead costs, but you're able to drill into various work centers. So maybe you're looking at these two concasts and you want to see, you know, what has been the level of cost and revenue that's been generated. You can kind of do the same thing for the labor hours, and you can limit this to a particular job. Of course, I'm not going to be able to pick a job that happens to have done stuff in this work center randomly, but let me just try here. It might give me an empty set. Yeah, it gave me an empty set. But I'm going to also show you that at any point you can also drill, which is the key thing. Like, okay, here are the hours that were spent. So I want to drill into these 261 hours, and I'm going to see which jobs took up those hours. I think what needs to be added here, so you may say, good, you may say, look, you're really far away from what I need, or you may say, hey, you have a lot of great raw material here, but I need this stuff compared to the standard hours or the the estimated hours from the job router. And that we haven't built yet. We're definitely mining that information and could build things for you quickly. But up to recently, our focus has been more on the material side. And we've just recently gotten into more of the looking at the hours and managing labor and work centers.
Okay,
That's
thank
great.
you for that.
Yep. We still have some people on the line, which is great. Brian, any text questions come through?
I don't have any more.
Nothing.
No, not right now. Is there's anything else anybody wants to talk about? Speak up now, I guess. So we're gonna end this. So let me know.
What does the MRP tab do?
In the MRP tab, we have an MPS analysis report, and it also warehouses an add-on module called the Buyer's Workbench, which again requires kind of a full demo in and of itself. Let me get into a database where I can run this MPS analysis. At least you can see that. The Buyer's Workbench says, okay, the MRP says you got to buy all of this stuff. The workbench brings all of the information necessary for the buyer to make that purchase, and kind of makes it like an Amazon-like buying experience. The items that need to be bought are listed, information is presented, and then the buyer says, and it makes a recommendation. It says, well, based on PO history, quote information, awarded suppliers, my recommendation is that you buy it from this supplier at this price for this delivery date. Now, if our recommendation is good, all the buyer does, it says move to cart. It moves that action to the cart, and they can go on to the next action. Then the actions in the cart are through a collaboration we've done with a Made2Manage consulting expert. The information in the cart is automatically uploaded into Made2Manage and creates the purchase orders. So that's Buyer's Workbench. This is the MPS report. So if you're running MPS in Made2Manage, it basically gives you the details of the master production schedule across the different types of demand or supply. So if I wanted to look at sales orders, I could limit it to only sales orders, and then I would see what are we driving in the MPS, and then how is the MPS outfitted over time. And then you could obviously drill into any of these part numbers and go to part inquiry and see what the details are. But the buyer workbench is kind of the key piece of the MRP. So if you have an organization that has multiple buyers and does a lot of purchasing, the buyer workbench can bring a lot of, one, automation, and two, control, because it'll do things like warn the buyer that, hey, this purchase action is going to cause a significant amount of excess inventory, may not allow them, depending on the settings, to move it into the shopping cart before it has an approver approve it, or it's going to cause a significant amount of purchase price variance, and based on thresholds, it doesn't allow the buyer to move it into the shopping cart until an approver goes through the approval bench and approves it.
Anything more? Did that answer your question?
Yes, I'm good for now, thanks.
You bet. Okay. Thank all of you guys for your attendance today, and please, if you'd like to have us do a one-on-one demo with you and your team, just contact, if it's a Made2Manage customer, contact me, Brian Tognoni. If it's an Intuitive customer, contact Gary Cerny. And I think that there's the information on your screen. Although I think you probably have our original email came from Gary and myself. So you can go into that, or you can go on our website, PeopleSenseERP.com, and all that information is there too. So thank you very much. You guys have a good, wonderful day.
All right, thanks, you too.
Okay, looks like we've just got Bill and me, and maybe we have Jim there. Are you there, Jim?
You do.
Okay.
I had unmute both.